You know what's strange is that most people who can't sleep at night never once think about their digestion. They think about their pillow, they think about the temperature in the room, they think about whether they had too much coffee that afternoon, but the place they never look is the one place that might matter more than all of those things combined. And I find that fascinating because the connection between your gut and your sleep is one of the most well-documented relationships in modern science. Yet, almost nobody talks about it in a way that actually makes sense to a regular person. So that's exactly what we're going to do today, and by the time we're done, I think you're going to see your sleepless nights in a completely different light. And I want to be upfront with you right now. If you stay with me all the way through this, I'm going to give you real practical solutions that you can start using tonight, not next week, not next month, tonight, and they could genuinely change the way you sleep from here on out. So please stick with me because the best part of this conversation is waiting for you at the end. Let me start with something that genuinely surprised me when I first came across it. Your body makes a chemical called serotonin, and the easiest way to understand serotonin is to think of it as your body's natural calm-down signal. It's the chemical that helps you feel relaxed, regulates your mood, and tells your nervous system it's okay to stop being on high alert. When you have enough of it, you feel steady and at ease. When you don't have enough, you feel tense and restless, especially at night when the house goes quiet and there's nothing left to keep your mind occupied. Most people assume serotonin is made in the brain because that's where we notice its effects, but that's actually not where most of it comes from. Roughly 90% of all the serotonin in your entire body is produced in your gut by cells that line your intestinal wall, and the bacteria living in your gut are directly involved in making that happen. So when those gut bacteria are healthy and thriving, your body produces plenty of serotonin, and your nervous system can actually settle down when it needs to. But when those bacteria are damaged or out of balance, serotonin production drops, and your body loses access to the very chemical it needs to calm down at the end of the day. And here's why that connects directly to sleep. Your body takes serotonin and converts it into another chemical called melatonin. If serotonin is the calm-down signal, melatonin is the lights-out signal. It's what makes your eyelids heavy in the evening, what slows your thinking down, what tells your brain it's nighttime, and it's safe to shut off and rest. But your body can only make melatonin if it has enough serotonin to work with, and it can only make enough serotonin if the bacteria in your gut are doing their job. So if your gut is in trouble, your serotonin drops, which means your melatonin drops, which means that lights out signal never arrives the way it should, and you end up lying in bed, exhausted, but unable to actually fall asleep. It's not that something is wrong with your brain, it's that the supply chain that feeds your brain the chemicals it needs for sleep has been disrupted at the source, and that source is your gut. Now, what really convinced me this wasn't just a theory was a study out of Nova Southeastern University that tracked people's gut bacteria alongside their actual sleep patterns over a full month using wrist-worn monitors. What they found was remarkably clear. The people with the most diverse gut bacteria slept longer, slept more efficiently, and woke up less during the night. And the people with less diversity in their gut had more fragmented, restless, unsatisfying sleep. This wasn't a small observation buried in complicated data. It was one of the strongest correlations in the entire study, and it pointed in one unmistakable direction: the health of your gut and the quality of your sleep are deeply connected. And it works the other way around too, which is what makes this so tricky. When you sleep poorly, your gut gets worse. When your gut gets worse, you sleep even more poorly. A research team confirmed this cycle in 2025 when they published findings showing that insomnia itself throws off the balance of bacteria in your gut. The harmful bacteria start to outnumber the good ones, inflammation increases, and the chemicals your gut needs to produce for healthy sleep become harder and harder for your body to make. So you end up trapped in this loop where bad sleep feeds bad gut health, and bad gut health feeds bad sleep, and unless something interrupts that cycle, it just keeps spinning. There's another piece of this that I think is really important to understand, and it has to do with a nerve that most people have never heard of called the vagus nerve. Think of it as a long telephone wire that runs from the base of your brain all the way down into your gut, and it lets the two communicate back and forth constantly. What's remarkable is that about 80% of the messages traveling along this wire are going upward from the gut to the brain, not the other way around. So your gut is constantly telling your brain what's happening inside you, and your brain listens and reacts. When your gut is calm and balanced and populated with the right bacteria, The messages going up to your brain are steady, and your brain can relax into sleep without resistance. But when your gut is inflamed or out of balance, those messages shift. They become stress signals, and your brain reads them as a reason to stay alert and awake. This is one of the reasons people describe lying in bed feeling tired, but wired at the same time. Their body wants to sleep, but their gut is sending signals that keep their brain on guard without them ever knowing why. There's one more chemical in this story that matters enormously for sleep, and it's called GABA. The simplest way to understand GABA is to think of it as your brain's off switch. All day long, your brain is running, reacting, processing, and GABA is what finally tells it to slow down and stop for the night. Certain types of gut bacteria, particularly ones called lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, produce GABA right there inside your intestines. Researchers tested a combination of these bacteria in a clinical study and found that participants who took them started sleeping 36 to 44% longer within just 2 weeks, and they fell asleep faster too. That's a meaningful difference in someone's daily life, and all that changed was the bacteria in their gut. It reinforces something I think more people need to hear, which is that sleeplessness isn't always a brain problem. Sometimes your brain is perfectly willing to sleep, it just isn't getting the right chemical signals because the place that makes those chemicals has been knocked out of balance. And there are a lot of things that can knock it out of balance, many of which build up quietly over the years without anyone connecting them to sleep. If you've ever taken a course of antibiotics, and most of us have, those antibiotics didn't just kill the infection they were prescribed for. They wiped out large populations of the good bacteria in your gut along with it. And depending on the type and how long you took them, some of those good bacteria may never have fully come back. Researchers found that antibiotic-induced depletion of gut bacteria measurably reduced nighttime sleep in studies, which lines up with what many people say after finishing antibiotics, that their sleep just hasn't been the same since. Antacids are another one that surprises people. The kind many people take daily for heartburn or reflux gradually changes the environment inside the gut in ways that make it harder for beneficial bacteria to survive. And then there's the food itself. Diets heavy in processed foods, added sugars, and refined carbohydrates feed the wrong kind of bacteria, promote inflammation in the gut lining, and reduce the production of the very substances your gut bacteria need to support healthy sleep. One of the most important of those substances is something your good gut bacteria make when they digest fiber from the food you eat. They break that fiber down into small molecules, and the most powerful one for sleep is called butyrate. You don't need to remember that name, just understand what it does. When researchers gave butyrate to animals and monitored their brain activity, deep restorative sleep increased by almost 50% within 4 hours. When they delivered it more directly through the body, deep sleep jumped by 70% within 6 hours. And these animals weren't sedated. They were completely alert and normal when awake. The butyrate was simply helping their brains drop into deeper, more restorative sleep when it was time to rest. And when researchers looked at people with chronic insomnia, they found significantly lower levels of exactly the bacteria that produce butyrate. The pattern was clear and consistent. So now here's the part I asked you to stay for, the solutions. And I promise you they are simpler than you might expect. Because the encouraging thing about your gut is that it is one of the most responsive systems in your entire body. It doesn't take months or years to start turning things around. Your gut bacteria begin responding to changes in your diet within days, and when they get what they need, the effects reach into your sleep, your energy, and how you feel when you open your eyes in the morning. The most powerful thing you can do is start feeding your good gut bacteria with fiber from real whole foods. Not a supplement, not a powder, but actual food that your bacteria can break down and turn into those sleep-supporting substances. Lentils are one of the best things you can eat for your gut, and a simple bowl of lentil soup a few times a week goes a long way. Chickpeas are excellent whether you eat them as hummus or add them to a salad or stew. Oats are great, the plain kind you cook yourself, not the instant packets with added sugar. Apples with the skin on because that's where most of the fiber lives. Bananas that are just slightly underripe, still a little firm with a touch of green because at that stage they contain a type of fiber that gut bacteria thrive on. And garlic, onions, leeks, and asparagus are all powerful foods for gut health that you can work into almost any meal. Think of these foods as watering a garden. Your good bacteria are the plants, the fibers the water, and without it, the weeds take over. The second thing that helps enormously is fermented food. While fiber feeds the bacteria already living in your gut, fermented foods bring in fresh bacteria from outside, like planting new seeds in that garden. Plain yogurt with live active cultures is the easiest place to start. Just make sure it's plain, not the sweetened flavored kind, because the added sugar works against you. Kefir is even more effective because it contains a wider variety of beneficial bacteria, and you can drink it straight or pour it over your morning oats. Sauerkraut from the refrigerated section of the grocery store is another strong option, but skip the shelf-stable kind in a can because the heating process kills all the living bacteria. These are foods humans have eaten for thousands of years, long before anyone understood the science behind them, and it turns out there was a very good reason they stuck around. The third change is about what to cut back on, and you don't have to be perfect about this. Nobody's asking you to overhaul your entire diet overnight, but if processed snacks, sugary foods, white bread, and sweetened drinks are a regular part of your evening, that's worth looking at. These foods feed the harmful bacteria in your gut and create inflammation that sends stress signals up the vagus nerve to your brain right when you're supposed to be winding down. Even small reductions give your good bacteria more room to recover and start doing their job again. And there's one more change that costs absolutely nothing. Try to finish eating at least 3 hours before you go to bed. When you eat late and lie down while your gut is still actively digesting, that activity sends signals up to your brain that keep it in a lighter, more alert state. You might doze off, but you won't reach the deep restorative sleep your body actually needs. A 3-hour window between your last bite and your pillow lets your gut settle and gives your brain the quiet it needs to fully shut down for the night. Harvard Medical School published a study that I think puts all of this into perspective. They were trying to figure out why long-term sleep deprivation can be fatal, and they expected to find the answer in the brain. Instead, they found it in the gut. Sleep-deprived animals accumulated toxic molecules specifically in their intestines, and when researchers neutralized those molecules, the animals survived with normal lifespans, even though they were still sleep-deprived. The lead researcher said her team gathered around every morning, watching in disbelief as these animals lived normal lives simply because their guts had been protected. Your gut is not just sitting there digesting food, it is actively producing the chemicals your brain needs to sleep, sending signals to your brain through that long nerve, and responding to every single thing you eat. The choices you make at the grocery store and at the dinner table directly determine whether your gut helps you sleep tonight or keeps you awake. A bowl of oats with a sliced banana in the morning, a cup of plain yogurt or kefir in the afternoon, some lentils or chickpeas at dinner. Finishing that dinner 3 hours before bed. These are small, affordable changes that anyone can start tomorrow. But inside your gut, these changes matter enormously, giving your bacteria exactly what they need to start producing serotonin, GABA, and melatonin the way they're supposed to. Give it a week or two and pay attention to what happens. I think you'll notice yourself falling asleep a little easier, staying asleep a little longer, and waking up feeling something that might have been missing for a while now, the simple, quiet feeling that sleep actually did what it was supposed to do.